In this tutorial, I will discuss the abdominal wall muscles. There are four major muscles which make up the abdominal wall, and each of these is paired. Outlined here is external oblique. The fibers of this muscle run down and forward, and as they approach the midline, they become aponeurotic, this white connective tissue here. Deep to external oblique, we find internal oblique. Internal oblique starts posteriorly on the thoracolumbar fascia, and then its fibers run upwards and medially towards the midline. Just like external oblique, as it approaches the midline, its fibers become aponeurotic. However, the aponeurosis has been removed in this picture. Deep to external and internal oblique, we find transversus abdominis. You can see here that the fibers of this particular muscle run in the transverse plane. Again, as it approaches the midline, its fibers become aponeurotic. Lastly, we have this large vertical muscle called rectus abdominis. Rectus means straight, and abdominis is referring to the abdominal region. Rectus posterior side of the body. External oblique is the largest and also the most superficial of the three flat anterior lateral abdominal wall muscles. External oblique originates on the external surfaces of ribs 5 to 12, and I'll outline this origin here. The muscle fibers run down and forward, so here you can see the fiber direction running this way, and as they approach the midline, they become aponeurotic. This particular muscle attaches onto the iliac crest and just medial to the pubic tubercle, and lastly goes all the way to the midline to the linea alba. The aponeurotic fibers of external oblique merge with internal oblique on the opposite side. Internal oblique originates posteriorly along the thoracolumbar fascia, which I'll highlight here. In addition, it also attaches onto the iliac crest, and also connective tissue deep to the inguinal ligament. The fibers of this particular muscle run perpendicular to the fibers of external oblique. They're running up and forward. The muscle attaches to ribs 10 to 12 and also continues all the way to the linea alba via an aponeurosis. The aponeurosis of internal oblique actually splits. Part of it goes in front of rectus abdominis and the other part goes behind. Lastly, internal oblique also attaches down here onto the pubis via the conjoint tendon. When contracting bilaterally, both of the oblique muscles work to produce flexion of the vertebral column. They also help to compress and support the abdominal viscera. When contracting unilaterally, we can see that the oblique muscles help to produce lateral flexion. And lastly, also when contracted unilaterally, they produce rotation of the vertebral column. Deep to the oblique muscles, we find transversus abdominis, which I've highlighted here in blue. Transversus abdominis also starts posteriorly on the thoracolumbar fascia. Here we have the thoracolumbar fascia. It also attaches onto the iliac crest, which we can see here. A part of the muscle also starts just deep to the inguinal ligament, similar to internal oblique. And lastly, part of the muscle starts on the internal surfaces of the costal cartilages 7 to 12. You can only see part of the costal cartilage here. The other parts are covered up by the actual muscle. The fibers of this muscle run in the transverse plane, and as they approach the midline, they become aponeurotic. The aponeurosis of transversus abdominis goes behind rectus abdominis, and then eventually connects with the linea alba, which we can see here. When the fibers of this muscle concentrically contract or pull back towards the origin, they act to just compress the abdominal contents. So this particular muscle, because of the fiber direction, does not help with flexion of the vertebral column. The last of the four paired abdominal muscles is rectus abdominis, and rectus abdominis starts below on the pubic symphysis and also on the pubic crest, And the long muscle extends upwards and attaches onto the xiphoid process, which I've highlighted here. A tendinous intersection, here's another one, and here's another one. So as the muscle develops or gets bigger, this muscle bulges out, whereas the tendinous intersection stays in place. And this is what kind of gives people that really great 6-pack or 8-pack that you can see. Because of the way the body develops, sometimes these intersections don't meet up directly at the midline. And that's why even in bodybuilders, sometimes you see that the abdominal wall doesn't look symmetric on both sides. Rectus abdominis helps to flex the vertebral column and also compresses the abdominal viscera when contracting. And because it attaches down onto the pelvis, it helps to control the pelvic tilt. At the end of this video clip, press pause and try answering the following 5 recap questions.